but spending most of her life in Anchorage, Alaska. And she is speaking today from the Advanced Speaker Manual, the Persuasive Manual, the Persuasive Leader. The title of her talk this morning is Unspoken Epidemic. Unspoken Epidemic. Please welcome Kimberly Reid.
The unspoken epidemic. Its symptoms are depression, divorce, and dis-ease. Loneliness, sadness, aggressiveness, selfishness, darkness, destructiveness, heaviness, numbness, restlessness, unhappiness, worthlessness, weakness, powerlessness, just to name a few of its unsavory effects. The insidiousness of this epidemic is raping our society. It is perpetuated by governments, mass media, and even families. It has been used as a means of control. Our minds populate the epidemic and transfer it to the very cells of our bodies, causing them to mutate. And this mutation, if not addressed, can even alter our DNA and therefore have effects in our offspring. Ladies and gentlemen, do you know the name of this unspoken epidemic? Fear. Fear. Fear is running rampant. Fear of not having enough. Fear of not being enough. Fear of death. Fear of being unworthy. Fear of failure. Fear of success. Fear of abandonment. Fear of change. Fear of dogs. Fear of spiders. And fear of public speaking are just a few of its prevalent forms. But what about the other forms of fear we name differently? Because calling them fear is just too scary. The commonly acceptable names of our society is worry, anxiety, stress, and even addiction. All of those are rooted in fear if we're really honest about it. Stress has become such an issue in our country that the U.S. Public Health Service has made reducing stress one of its major health initiatives. Quoted in a 2007 Science Daily article, Stanford University neuroscientist Robert Sapolsky says this: but non-life-threatening stressors such as constantly worrying about money or pleasing your boss also trigger the release of adrenaline and other stress hormones, which over time can have devastating consequences to your health. He continued by saying, if you turn on the stress response chronically for purely psychological reasons, you increase your risk of adult onset diabetes and high blood pressure. If you're chronically shutting down the digestive system, there's a bunch of gastrointestinal disorders you're more at risk for as well. Ever heard of anybody that had an ulcer? IBS? Just to name a few. Fear actually attacks the immune system and drains our very life energy. Today we're going to cover three things. What is it really? Why is shift important? And how to vaccinate it. The unspoken epidemic, what is it really? Fear is a belief that we created, a story that we're telling ourselves, or that we bought into, whether it be, again, from society or family. This fear belief causes us to disconnect from our spirit. It's a disconnection from spirit and source. In the disconnection, our energy is drained, depleted, and becomes diseased. And I say dis-ease because we're ill at ease. We have an illness a lack of ease in our bodies, and that causes disease. We move away from the light and into the darkness when we fear. Prolonged residence in this space causes a zombie-like existence. With few smiles, no spark, no twinkle in the eye. Zero creativity can live in this space, and certainly no bliss exists there either. I'm going to give you two examples. The first one's a fun one. Some of you know that this summer we had a new addition to our home, Buster. Buster is a kitten. He's about 8 months old now. And we've discovered that he has an aversion to closed doors. He has a fear of closed doors. We're not quite sure if it's a fear of abandonment, or if it's a fear of just closed doors, or fear of missing out on the action. But whatever it is, it's a fear. And he goes ballistic when he has a closed door. He meows, he cries, he scratches, he jumps, he goes crazy. Until, and finally, we either open the door or he lives up to his room and we bust through the door. I can no longer go to the restroom by myself. Buster is there. But it may sound silly, but how often have we acted silly because of fear? How often have we done something self-sabotaging that disconnected us because of fear? Second example that will really drive this point home, I hope. Recently in the news, you may have heard about Occupy Wall Street. These folks are angry. They have a fear of not having enough or not having their needs met. And probably many other fears as well. They blindly accepted, get good grades, go to school, get a job. That formula no longer necessarily works in this changing economy. They got upset when the formula didn't work perfectly for them. They gave away their power. They gave away their power in that anger. And they succumbed to the fear. But what they and we must understand is what you focus on expands. What you focus on expands. So if you're focusing on lack, I'm not enough, I don't have this, that, or the other, guess what you're going to get? More of not having enough and not being enough. Not a real bountiful, creative space there. So, focusing on not having enough, not having a job, focusing on school debts, all of that expands. They will get more of the same fear and evidence showing up in their lives to support that story. Making a conscious and deliberate shift on focusing on solutions rather than the problem, shifting their energy, reconnecting to spirit, will allow for creative solutions like making jobs instead of taking jobs. By staying trapped in the darkness of fear, solutions will never come. Shifting to focus of light and the fact that we live in an abundant universe allows for innovation to flourish. Why is making the shift from unspoken epidemic fear necessary? Well, for one, it feels damn good. We had a great example this morning from Jose Luis. You got your shoulders back and you got a smile on your face. You felt better, right? You felt more confident, more powerful. How does that affect your relationships in business and at home if you're feeling confident and loved and peaceful and bountiful? Versus the obvious. Be the example for others to make that shift as well. That's why it's important. This automatically, third point, automatically supports the awakening shift in the global energy. Just by you making that shift in the world. Just by being that authentic and true you. How do we vaccinate? How do we vaccinate against this epidemic? There's a great platform by my good friend Kim George, another great Kim. The Abundance Intelligence Platform. 4 parts: see it, own it, live it, and be it. See it, own it, live it, be it. See what is true for you. Is that fear really you? No. No. It's gunk covering up your brilliance. Own it. What is your part of what is going on? Take responsibility for your part in creating that fear. You were the one that chose to buy into that. Embrace that part of yourself and show it some light and show it some love and heal that fear. Live it. Live in a new way. Create a life that you enjoy versus fear. What would your life, ask this question, start asking great questions. What would your life look like to live without that fear? How would it feel? What would it sound like? What would it look like? Create a new habit. Show your brain a new way to live. And finally, be it. Learn to be yourself, your true, authentic self, without the gunk covering up that innate brilliance. Learn to do that with greater and greater frequency. Practice being you. The fun, sometimes silly, genius, talented, loving, kind you. That's you. Gratitude and fear cannot live in the same place. So be thankful. Start looking around at everything. Even a glass of water contains so much to be grateful for. In closing, I challenge you to slay the unspoken epidemic called fear and reconnect with the spirit of bliss, joy, and personal power, and show others how to do the same. Thank you.